Today, two massive generations are shaping our world. Millennials, born between 1981 and 1996, and Gen Z, born from 1997 to 2012, now dominate the workforce and the marketplace. Understanding them is not just an interesting social study, it is a critical business imperative. Their values, behaviors, and expectations are rewriting the rules for how companies operate, how we sell products, and how we build communities. As we navigate 2026, the differences and similarities between these two groups have become more defined, especially following the rapid societal shifts of the past 3 years. They are not a single unified block of young people. They are distinct cohorts with unique experiences influencing their every decision. Millennials came of age during the dawn of the internet and the shock of the Great Recession. This shaped their approach to work and money, often with a mix of optimism and caution. Gen Z, on the other hand, grew up as true digital natives in a world of smartphones, social media, and constant connectivity. Their reality has been defined by global pandemics, social unrest, and economic uncertainty, making them pragmatic and direct. These formative experiences create a fascinating dynamic. They often share similar end goals, like financial security and a desire for meaningful work, but the paths they take to get there are often very different. This is the ultimate showdown of ideals and actions. The importance of examining these two generations has grown immensely since 2023. Together, they represent over half of the entire US workforce, meaning their preferences are no longer suggestions, but demands. Employers must adapt to their desire for flexibility and purpose-driven careers, or risk losing top talent. In the consumer world, their combined spending power directs trends and forces brands to be more transparent, sustainable, and authentic. Ignoring the nuances between a 40-year-old millennial and a 20-year-old Gen Z consumer is a recipe for failure. One might respond to nostalgic marketing, while the other seeks unfiltered influencer reviews on TikTok. As we delve deeper into their habits, we see a story of evolution. Millennials, who once pioneered the gig economy and the push for work-life balance, have now entered leadership roles and parenthood, shifting their priorities towards stability and long-term investments. Gen Z has picked up the baton, pushing the boundaries even further. They demand radical flexibility, accelerated career growth, and an unwavering commitment to social and environmental causes from the brands they support and the companies they work for. Understanding this generational handover, where one group's ideals are amplified and transformed by the next, is the key to unlocking the future of business and society. When it comes to spending, both Gen Z and millennials are driven by more than just price and quality. They are driven by their values. The last 3 years have cemented sustainability as a top priority for both. Research shows that over 60% of each generation are willing to pay more for sustainable products. However, Gen Z tends to be more vocal and demanding in this area. They grew up with the climate crisis as a constant headline, making them less tolerant of corporate greenwashing. They expect brands to show, not just tell, their commitment to the planet. This pressure has forced companies to rethink their supply chains, packaging, and overall environmental impact in ways we haven't seen before. While both generations prioritize spending money on experiences like travel and dining over material possessions, their purchasing behaviors diverge in interesting ways. Millennials, often juggling careers and young families, are drawn to convenience and nostalgia. They lead the market in subscription services, spending over $100 per month on everything from meal kits to streaming platforms. They also respond to products that remind them of their childhood. In contrast, Gen Z members are often described as deliberate impulse buyers. They might discover a new fashion trend on TikTok, but they will research it, read reviews, and wait for the right moment to buy, often seeking authenticity above all else. This demand for authenticity is a hallmark of Gen Z's influence, particularly in the world of fashion. They have championed inclusivity and realism, moving away from the highly polished and aspirational marketing that once appealed to older millennials. Gen Z drives trends that are eclectic, gender fluid, and often inspired by vintage or Y2K aesthetics, but with a modern twist. They look to real people and diverse influencers for style cues, valuing self-expression over conforming to a single ideal. Brands that succeed with this generation are those that feature a wide range of body types, ethnicities, and identities in their campaigns, making their products feel accessible and genuine to everyone. Furthermore, the wellness market, now a $2 trillion industry, is fueled by both generations. Millennials, who popularized the concept, now spend an average of $115 per month on fitness, beauty, and mental health services. They are also breaking down old taboos, driving growth in markets related to life stages like menopause. Gen Z is equally invested in wellness, but often approaches it through a digital lens, accessing therapy apps and fitness tutorials online. For both, spending on well-being is not an indulgence, but a necessary investment in themselves, a trend that is only intensified amid the stresses of the modern world since 2023. In the professional world, Gen Z and millennials have formed a powerful coalition that makes up more than half of the American workforce. Both generations fundamentally agree that a job should be more than just a paycheck. It needs to have a purpose. Nearly 9 out of 10 individuals from both groups report that purpose is crucial to their job satisfaction. Many have rejected job offers or specific assignments that conflicted with their personal ethics, such as tasks that could have a negative environmental impact or came from a company with a poor record on mental health support. This shared value has forced employers to articulate a clear mission and demonstrate a positive societal impact. However, the demand for flexibility reveals a significant generational gap that has widened since the pandemic. While millennials championed the initial push for a better work-life balance, Gen Z has taken this demand to a new level. For them, remote or hybrid work is not a perk, but a baseline expectation. A staggering 72% of Gen Z employees have considered leaving or have already left a job because it lacked flexible work policies, compared to 55% of millennials. This shows that Gen Z is far less willing to compromise on their ideal work environment, viewing autonomy over their time and location as a non-negotiable right. This willingness to walk away is a defining characteristic of Gen Z in the workplace. They have higher turnover rates and are more likely than any previous generation to quit a job without having another one lined up. This isn't due to a lack of ambition, but rather a low tolerance for unfulfilling roles. Beyond flexibility, Gen Z prioritizes rapid career growth and a supportive, inclusive company culture. They want clear paths for advancement and managers who act as mentors. If their needs for growth, value alignment, or mental health support are not met, they will quickly look for opportunities elsewhere, confident they can find a better fit. While both generations prioritize work-life balance when choosing an employer, their motivations can differ when it's time to make a change. For a majority of millennials, compensation remains the single biggest motivator for seeking a new job, a reflection of their life stage, which often includes mortgages and family expenses. In contrast, a significant portion of Gen Z places work-life balance even above salary when considering a new role. They are signaling that no amount of money is worth sacrificing their well-being, a mindset that is reshaping recruitment and retention strategies across every industry. The digital divide between Gen Z and millennials is less about access and more about instinct. Gen Z are true digital natives. Honestly, they don't even remember a world without the internet. For them, social media isn't just for connecting with friends. It's really become an integrated tool for life. Platforms like TikTok and Instagram, for example, serve as their primary search engines, where they discover new products, learn new skills, and even get their news. About 94% of Gen Z use a social platform daily, and their fluency in the visual, fast-paced language of these apps is, well, pretty much unmatched. This has fundamentally changed how information is consumed and shared, favoring short-form video and authentic, user-generated content over traditional media. Millennials are also highly active online, but their digital habits were formed in a different era. While they are now just as invested in TikTok, many still use Facebook as their main social feed for staying in touch with family and friends. For Gen Z, Facebook is more of a utility, used for accessing marketplace or specific groups, rather than for public self-expression. Instagram remains a common ground, and by 2025, Gen Z is projected to become its largest user group. Another interesting shift since 2022 has been the significant growth in LinkedIn usage for both generations, a trend that coincided with widespread layoffs and a renewed focus on professional networking and job security. The influence of digital creators and influencers is another key differentiator. For Gen Z, influencers are trusted guides whose recommendations heavily sway their purchasing decisions. They value the perceived authenticity and relatability of a creator over a polished corporate advertisement. A review from a favorite TikToker can launch a product into viral success overnight. While millennials also follow influencers, they may be more skeptical and more likely to cross-reference recommendations with other sources. They were the first generation to witness the rise of the influencer economy and have seen its evolution from personal blogs to a multi-billion-dollar industry. Beyond social media and shopping, these digital platforms have become centers for learning and community. Gen Z turns to TikTok and YouTube for everything from financial advice to DIY tutorials, preferring visual, bite-sized lessons from peers. This has implications for education and workplace training, which must adapt to hold the attention of a generation accustomed to instant information. Millennials also embrace online learning, but may be more inclined to use established platforms like LinkedIn Learning or formal online courses. Both generations, however, use technology to build communities around shared interests, proving that for them, the digital world is just as real and impactful as the physical one. The economic landscape of the last 3 years has left both Gen Z and millennials feeling the pressure, with the cost of living ranking as their top societal concern. Over half of each generation reports living paycheck to paycheck, and roughly a third of each group does not feel financially secure. This shared anxiety has shaped their financial habits, but in distinctly different ways. Gen Z, having watched millennials grapple with student loans and economic downturns, has become intensely proactive about their finances from an early age. They turn to social media platforms like TikTok and YouTube for financial education, valuing independence and creating multiple income streams through side hustles. Despite this focus on saving, Gen Z faces a peculiar paradox. They carry the highest average personal debt relative to their income and often have very little in savings, with nearly 70% holding less than $2,000. This is partly due to their enthusiastic adoption of buy now, pay later services, which make it easy to spend money they don't have. While they prioritize saving in theory, their digital native comfort with instant gratification and online financing tools creates a complex financial picture. They want to be responsible, but the modern economy presents new and tempting challenges that previous generations did not face so early in their lives. Millennials, now further along in their careers, are more focused on traditional long-term financial goals. Their primary concerns revolve around managing existing debt, such as student loans, and saving for major life events like retirement and home ownership. Having experienced financial instability firsthand, they are often more cautious in their financial planning. They actively seek ways to manage their debt through refinancing and disciplined repayment plans. Their spending is significant, with an average annual retail expenditure of over $31,000 as of 2025, but it is often directed toward building a stable future for themselves and their families. Despite the widespread financial worries, there is a rising tide of optimism. In early 2024, nearly half of Gen Z and 40% of millennials expected their personal financial situations to improve, the highest level of confidence recorded since before the pandemic. This suggests a resilient spirit and a belief in their own ability to navigate economic challenges. For Gen Z, this optimism is fueled by their entrepreneurial drive and belief in side jobs. For millennials, it comes from advancing in their careers and gaining more financial literacy over time. Both generations are determined to build wealth, but their strategies reflect their unique life stages and economic experiences. The differences and similarities between Gen Z and millennials are more than just trivia. Honestly, they are a roadmap for the future. For businesses, the message is clear. A one-size-fits-all approach is no longer viable. To attract and retain talent, employers must offer a blend of what both generations value. This means creating a workplace culture that is not only flexible and supportive of mental well-being, a demand championed by Gen Z, but also offers the stability and competitive compensation that remains critical for millennials. The companies that thrive will be those that listen to these demands and build an environment where both generations feel seen, valued, and empowered to grow. In the consumer market, the dual influence of these generations is pushing brands toward a new standard of operation. Their shared demand for sustainability and ethical practices means that transparency is no longer optional. However, marketing strategies must be nuanced. Reaching millennials may involve tapping into nostalgia and the convenience of subscriptions, while capturing Gen Z's attention requires authenticity, influencer collaborations on platforms like TikTok, and a genuine commitment to inclusivity. Brands must learn to speak two slightly different languages to connect effectively with a market that spans from recent college graduates to established homeowners. Socially, the impact of these two generations is profound. They are driving conversations around critical issues like climate change, social justice, and mental health. Their digital fluency allows them to mobilize and advocate for change at an unprecedented speed. Even recent trends, such as the surprising surge in Bible reading among young men in both generations, show that their interests are complex and defy easy categorization. They are not just inheriting the world, they are actively reshaping its cultural and social norms, often with a mix of pragmatism and a deep-seated desire for a better, more equitable future. Their curiosity is driving them to explore old ideas in new ways. Ultimately, understanding the Gen Z versus millennial showdown is about recognizing the powerful continuum of change. Millennials laid the groundwork for many of the shifts we see today, from flexible work to value-driven consumption. Gen Z has taken these foundational ideas and accelerated them, demanding more, faster. They are not adversaries, but rather successive waves of transformation, each building on the last. For society, for business leaders, and for marketers, the task is to navigate this dynamic landscape with empathy and agility. The future belongs to those who can appreciate the distinct perspectives of both generations and adapt to the world they are building together.